Hey, what's up guys, it's Blake, and today I'm going to be going through my 10 favorite albums that came out in 2018. 2018 was a great year for music. I discovered a whole lot of new artists and a lot of albums, and I'm very excited to share them with you today. So in this list, we're going to be going through my favorite LPs. I did listen to a ton of EPs this year, and a lot of those were my favorites as well. And just to go through those EPs really quickly before we kick everything off, they are Porta by Joan, Boy Genius by Boy Genius, R.I.P. Indo Hishashi by No Rome, A Familiar Love by Shaded, and Rob by Sigrid. Those are some great EPs, and you should check those out as well in addition to all the albums on this list. So let's get right into number 10. At number 10, I have Aerozone by Vane, which is the only heavier record on my list. This is a blisteringly heavy, fast, and aggressive hardcore record that blends together a lot of industrial, deathcore, and even some hip-hop influences in some places. This album is extremely similar to Code Orange's Forever, which I really loved in 2017. This album is relentless from start to finish and takes very few breaks. I really love a hardcore record that keeps the energy high throughout the entire track list and doesn't really sound monotonous. Each track brings something new to the table while still maintaining a brooding and heavy forefront. Each track brings something new to the table while keeping a very brooding and forceful punch. A lot of modern hardcore bands use guttural and deep downtime sections to really hammer their heaviness and aggression home. But Vane does it very sparingly on this record, and when they do, they really make it count. And they use all these other instrumental techniques to keep things fresh as well. Most tracks are very short and concise, which makes a very precise and focused record. The fat is completely trimmed from every song, so you really get only what you need to make it effective. My favorite tracks from this are Aerozone, Untitled, and Virus Vibrance.
So if you see her, and tell her I'd do anything I need her. I know I'm not perfect, but we were.
At number 9, we have Malibu Nights by Lady. We're going in pretty much the opposite direction from our last pick for this one, as this record is kind of just a collection of depressing and sad breakup songs dedicated to Dua Lipa. The emotion on this record is so palpable and evident, and it all really comes to fruition on the title track, which closes this record out. In general, Lady has never really had this level of production in terms of tightness, layers, and clarity. They've really transformed from a clean guitar driven band that happens to have some synths to a synth dominated band that tends to use clean guitar in some places, and I absolutely love that transition for them. This goes along with Paul's vocal style incredibly well and allows his vocals to shine on a great majority of these songs, especially the ones that are ballads and more piano driven. The album has its high energy songs as well, but they really take a back seat to the more depressing and sad ones, and even when those high energy tracks are there, they're still about the same material. It's a different take from Laney, but it makes a lot of sense given the events surrounding this record in Paul's life. My favorite tracks from it are Malibu Nights, Taking Me Back, and If You See Her.
Wait for the rain. I'll be there watching as it washes you away.
At number 8, I chose Crown Shyness by Trash Boat, which is probably the heaviest pop punk record to come out this year. I miss hearing post-hardcore and punk influences in pop punk, especially across an entire record, not just in one song like a gimmick most pop punk bands do. A lot of that grit and heaviness is largely attributable to the guitar tones used in this record. There's very little melodic guitar emphasis in a lot of the tracks. Instead, it focuses on grit, dissonance, and just straight power and rhythm. And this guitar bassist really sets the foundation for frontman Toby Duncan to hammer home the meaning of these songs to make them as special as they are. This album does have its more emotional lulls in tracks like the title track and Love, Hate, React, Relate. The stylistic contrast in these songs as compared to the rest of the record really allow them to soar and be as effective as they are. Elements of darkness and brooding flow through these tracks and make them equally heavy in their own emotional way. Hope is very scarce on this record, and when you're making songs that sound like this, you don't want much of it, and I think they completely nailed it. My favorite tracks are Inside Out, Old Soul, and Love, Hate, React, Relate. At number 7, I chose Clean by Soccer Mommy. This is an indie singer-songwriter type of record that feels timeless. This record could have been made in the 60s and it could have been made 20 years from now and it still would have the same emotional effects it does. It's a great minimalistic record that just exudes nostalgia that you just put on to chill and relax to. The reason why this album is so memorable to me is because frontwoman Sophie Allison puts on such a unique vocal performance. Those vocals are casual, free-flowing, and relaxed. The vocal tone is like Xanax for your ears. Instrumental production is lacking in the best way possible. That lack of production gives the instruments the same relaxed tones that permeates and oozes from this record. The acoustic guitar tones on this record are warm, fuzzy, and really bring home that relaxed feeling, while the electric ones are more thinner and they definitely are a lot more biting. It's a beautiful contrast between pretty much the same instrument. This album feels like every good memory I've ever had and really brings me back to times when I didn't even know this record exists, ironically enough. My favorite tracks from Clean are Scorpio Rising, Cool, and The Interlude.
Can't nobody ever notice, can't notice. Probably on some fast shit, should've done some ass shit, running through my last shit.
At number 6, we have 1.5 by Amine. Amine has largely been known for his very bright and bubbly positive rap, but on this project we see a complete turnaround to something a little more darker, self-conscious, and urban sounding. Production is a lot more dark, gloomy, and in some places quirky, which is a huge departure from what we're used to with him. Amine has always been a stylistic outsider, but on this record we see him drift into the mainstream a little more while keeping some of those idiosyncratic personality traits that his music is known for. Tracks like Ratchet Saturn Girl, Cantu, and STFU2 are some of those tracks that have a more obscure production style, but I really like them as well. A lot of the lines on this record can be pretty much summed up in that Twitter meme, weird flex but okay. That irony is incredibly effective if you don't take what Amine is saying too seriously. There are lines that will make you genuinely laugh out loud if you understand what Amine is referencing. On the one track he does get a lot more serious on the record, Dr. Whoever. We get a window into a lot of Amine's insecurities and how he struggled with this newfound fame, especially how that translates to a lot of the writing and themes we get on 1.5. My favorite tracks from this record are Dr. Whoever, Cantu, and Why. At number 5, we have Proper Dose by The Story So Far. The objectively best pop punk band of the 21st century returns after a 3-year break to bring us their most diverse and expansive work to date that's about more than just the same X that Parker's been singing about for their last 3 albums. Frontman Parker Cannon is fresh off overcoming a drug abuse issue, and with a title like Proper Dose, you can bet that a lot of tracks on this record are going to be drug influenced in some way or another. On Keep This Up, he addresses how this drug use could eventually kill him. Growing on You and If I Fall are about him letting down his closest people, and Let It Go is the sonic personification of an opiate high, and so on throughout the rest of the track list. This is an extremely emotionally heavy pop punk record shrouded in a very major key pop punk feel. Instrumentally, this record covers so many different timbres and tones. It's probably the most instrumentally adventurous pop punk album I think I've ever heard. It brings together classic late 90s and modern pop punk while drawing from other genres such as late 70s folk and even dream pop to bring everything together in this one kind of mishmash of genres that somehow works perfectly for this band. It's The Story So Far's best record by far and the true culmination of what they could become. My favorite tracks are Proper Dose, Take Me As You Please, and Growing on You.
I swear I look so regal, I swear I look so regal. Oh my baby got to know me, I'm looking like I'm the homie. I'm tatted from head to shoulder, I'm colder when he don't hold me. I'm warmer inside the casket.
At number 4, we have Room 25 by No Name. This is the smoothest sounding rap or spoken word album I've heard in a very long time, mainly because it's dripped in this very jazzy, soulful, neoclassical type of production. The lyricism is eloquent and fluid without ever really establishing a melodic feel to it. This record is a coming-of-age realization that's narrated in a very imperfect way by No Name. She welcomely accepts errors and shortcomings throughout her life that only enhance the genuine nature of a lot of the tracks on this record. It overshares a ton of intimate details about her life, but those overshares bring the listener in and give them a window into the true person behind this music. It adds a personal touch that is so refreshing to hear on a rap record. In a rap world where kind of all we hear is Pussy Money Weed, shout out The Drought Is Over by Lil Wayne, it's such a refreshing take on rap in general. I cannot stress enough how beautiful this record sounds and how beautiful her lyricism is despite her getting into some pretty explicit topics on this record. It comes across as a hopeful self-awakening of self-worth that's based on a history of triumph and failure as well. Those triumphs and failures are equally as important on this record that bring together No Name's personal experience to life. My favorite tracks on this one are Regal, Self, and Don't Forget About Me.
Can you put me in your pocket? Let me be your lucky charm. I'm right here waiting.
At number 3, I chose Beside Myself by Basement. My girlfriend thinks this record sounds way too much like late 90s alternative emo rock bands like Jimmy Eat World and Mineral, and doesn't like it for that reason, but ironically, that's why it's one of my favorite albums of the year. There is no band that does this kind of grunge revival type alternative rock that Basement excels at, and Beside Myself is a perfect example of them doing that style. Many of these tracks have a woozy and vulnerable feel, but still contain an alternative rock punch that really captures Basement's signature sound. Many of the more high energy tracks on this record call out to the listener in the choruses in a soaring but emotive way as well. The tracks are just melodically effervescent enough to stick with you, but they still have elements of darkness and broodingness to keep the rain cloud over this record. There's no musician in this band that does that better than vocalist Andrew Fisher, whose really deep and dark vocals truly are the heart and soul of this record and carry every single track on it. The vocal melodies are easily this track's shining point, but that doesn't mean everything else isn't as great. My favorite tracks are Keepsake, Disconnect, and Just a Life.
Tell them boys don't run from us. I've been down too long, cousin. I've been down too long, brother. Tell the world I ain't scared nothing. Tell the world I ain't scared jumping. Tell my boy I want to cripple on it. Tell the world stop.
At number 2, we have Iridescence by Brockhampton. Brockhampton is largely known for having like 600 people in their group, but more so known for their really off-the-wall production style and MC techniques that give the band the most personality in any rap group out today. I would describe this record as just an absolute barrage of sounds coming at the listener from all angles. Initially, this can be extremely overpowering and overwhelming, but as soon as you take a step back and really listen to what's going on, it all fits in place somehow. This is a lot more evident in the tracks that attempt to be bangers, but even the more slow and emotive songs on this record definitely have a lot going on in them. This record was an acquired taste for me, but once I bought into it, I never looked back. I found myself drifting a lot more towards the softer songs on the album, like Wait, Thug Life, and San Marcos, where I think most of the members deliver their most memorable performances. Kevin Abstract's verse on Wait serves as the centerpiece of this record on one of their songs that I think is their most memorable to date. This rivals the very emo San Marcos, where every single member of the band take turns offering up their vulnerability. This all culminates with the London Gospel Choir closing out the song in the most emotional and emo way a Brockhampton song could end. This record may be too abstract for some and will largely be a love-hate thing for a lot of people. It's polarizing, jarring, and scattered, but really creates this uniqueness that makes this band so great and so special. My favorite tracks on this one are San Marcos, Wait, and Tanya. At number 1, we have A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships by the 1975. You knew this was coming. I knew it was coming. The 1975 puts out a new record. I make it my album of the year. That's just what we do on this channel over the years. But you'll probably say, Blake, this record came out 3 days ago. How could you possibly have had enough time to listen to it and analyze it? And I will say, I knew from the first time I heard Go Down Soft Sound on the opening track of this record that this album was going to be great. I really didn't need to hear much else past that point. This record captures every feeling and experience of what it means to be a young adult in the 21st century. And it does this in a style that's very metaphysical and self-aware. Most of the tracks are written in a style where Matty Healy places himself in the song, and his experiences in the song are what the focal point of the song is birthed out of and how it gets its meaning. He creates these characters that really know they are characters in a song. He uses this self-awareness in their consciousness to get the point across in an effective way. This whole songwriting style and complex is witty postmodernism at its core. Throughout songs like It's Not Living If It's Not With You, Give Yourself a Try, Surrounded by Heads and Bodies, and most importantly, Sincerity is Scary. Maddie is writing a song about Maddie, where Maddie figure out what Maddie should do in his own song, in his own brain. It's amazing. This technique is so special because he does it in such a relatable and easy to follow way where I could place myself in the same shoes and be like, oh, this makes sense. Despite all the songs that look inwards, there's so many other tracks on this record that look outwards into society and establish what the problems are around it. He really assesses the problems of modern life and how society has grown to just accept these problems. Love It If We Made It goes through random problematic headlines in the most industrial and robotic way. The Man Who Married a Robot is about somebody's addiction to the internet and how it consumes their lives and identities like so many people do in the world today. I Like America and America Likes Me specifically goes on about what life in America is like. It talks about gun control, designer fashion, recreational pharmaceutical drug use, and it does it all in a style that is central to what American music is like nowadays. And then there are songs that are just about insecurities within relationships that permeate pretty much everybody's life, and how those translate to infidelity, mistrust, and just a general degradation of the modern relationship. I truly believe that this is the 1975 best album to date and their most mature take on a lot of the issues discussed on this record. It's an amazing record, and I can't wait to continue playing it for a very long time. My favorite tracks on this record are Love It If We Made It, I Always Want to Die Sometimes, and I Couldn't Be More in Love. So there you have it. Those are my 10 favorite records of this year. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you can find some new music through this video. If you liked it, please hit that like button below and subscribe for more guitar and music related content, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.